So Projected Success is a business which is there to transform the way we deliver projects through data. So back in 2017, we realized that we needed critical mass across the industry to drive this agenda. So we built up the project data analytics community, and that's starting to get the word out there. We then built up on that in terms of things like hackathons. And that's starting to inspire people. It's starting to give them skills to get going. We then got into training. So we run the academy program, which is building this critical mass even further. And then we're getting into things like solutions. So basically, Projecting Success has been at the center of all of that. We've been instrumental in setting up the task force as well. So we've got a passion for really transforming projects and making them data driven, basically.
Yes, so Major Project Association is a membership body, and we bring together what I regard as the full 360 degrees of organisations involved in major projects, whether that be the funders or the investors, government bodies, the client bodies that own and operate project outputs, the industry organisations who get involved, the advisors that help them, and the academics that study them. So it's all of those organisations that contribute to the success of a major project. We've been going for about 40 years. In fact, this year is our 40th anniversary. We're just coming up to that. And our purpose is to help our members improve the initiation and delivery of major projects and their beneficial outcomes. And we do that through sharing ideas, connecting these organisations together, and investigating and analysing, where the opportunities are to improve and also where the barriers are.
In terms of project data on major projects, I think it's going to be transformational. So at the moment, we tend to run projects on the basis of experience. So the more experienced people, we get to sort of run the bigger and bigger projects. We've found that because project performance is so poor, so there's been some work done by Oxford University which looked at the probability of a project being delivered to its sanction in terms of the business case which was signed off. So that's cost, schedule and benefits that's going to be delivered. There's only 1 in 200 projects is delivering in terms of its sanction. So we've got to change that number. We've got to massively change that number. So we can do that through data. We can start to use the evidence to drive some of that transformational change, and we can start to evidence and predict where we're going to get turbulence in a project. So where is this variance going to come from, and what can we do to start to preempt it? So we then start to make a lot of the conversations data driven. We start to think in terms of evidence, and we start to really challenge those conversations. So I think it's going to be a very, very different future. It's going to be jobs which are all going to be based around data. I think it'll be very high quality jobs as well. So we'll start to do a lot less of the mundane process turning type work, because we can automate a lot of that. And we'll start to drive people up the value ladder. And I think it's a really exciting future.
I really see the future of projects and major projects where to date we've been trying to capture what good practice looks like, and we're doing that through hindsight and through analysis of things that have already happened. And so much of that is then sort of codified into, say, lessons learned reports, or or end project reports, or indeed in terms of frameworks and methods. Now, I had responsibility a number of years ago and several times since of helping to codify those good practices and put it into a methodology or a framework, so likes of Prince 2 and so on. But we all know that projects are driven by context, and they're driven by the unique characteristics of the individuals involved and the organisations involved, and if it's a physical project, site conditions and so on. So it's difficult to instill the things that people need to do in a textbook. Whether that's in a few chapters or down to a page or a paragraph, and even difficult for people to remember all of that and then choose to apply it at the right time, in the right circumstance on their individual project. So it's really to do with that complex relationship between the choices that we have, the decisions that we make, and the outcomes that those decisions have in the context of when we make them. And I see the future of projects with data analytics really enriching that process. So we will rely less on frameworks and methods and the codification of something in a static way, and we'll rely more on analysis to say, with this set of choices I have, with the options that I can take, what are the likelihood, or what's my predisposition, if you like, that option A, B, or C is more or less likely to yield what sort of outcome. And then we can make informed decisions rather than trying to refer it and compare it to other projects. So I see it as massively sort of, if you like, liberating, the project professionals to really focus on the things that they're going to do that will make the biggest difference on their projects. Well, we're going to go right into one of our key barriers here, which is around data quality and data access. And the challenge we have with projects today is that, well, characteristic of a project is that it's temporary, with a temporary organization. So often when that project finishes, all the data that's been generated by it may or may not then be kept for the sort of prosperity of others that come after it. And if they are, if that data is collected and captured in a way that can be used for future projects, it's likely to be within an individual organization. So I think the way that we can improve this is firstly to regard data as really precious, and not something that just evaporates at the end of the project and we forget about it, but something that needs setting up in advance in terms of what sort of data will this project be generating, how we're going to capture it, how we're going to make sense of it, how we will share it when the project finishes. And the real value isn't that when I'm working on a project, I can perhaps compare my project with the 10 or so in my organization that are similar, but the real value is when I can compare my project with, say, 10, 20, 30,000 other projects that are similar to it from across the world. So it's the pooling of that data and understanding those patterns that data analytics can provide us that will really generate the massive improvements in projects that we need. And when I've been talking about it there at a project level, but we will often break it down into parts, won't we? The smaller parts of the project. So when I'm talking about comparing something, we might be comparing, a decision on perhaps how we do one aspect of stakeholder engagement, for example, and we can compare the context of our stakeholder scenario to the context of, say, as I said before, 100,000 other projects that were like it, and that's where we'll get the real value out of data.
So I think in terms of data at the moment, Andy's spot on. This data's scattered around everywhere. It's not really valued. So I think the first step in that process is to drive up the data quality and start to educate people about its benefit and its transformational benefit. And I think then we drive a data sort of culture. Once we've got a data culture, we start to ask the right questions. Once we start to ask the right questions, and it's a question-based approach, it's not a data-based approach, right? So I see organizations at the moment who's got a load of data and say, can you pick the bones out of the data? I don't think that's the right approach. We should be starting with the problem statement. So once we start to move towards a problem statement, we can align the data with the problem statements, and that's when we can drive the insights. And those insights, I think, will come first of all through things like dashboards and Power BI and Tableau and that sort of stuff. So that's where most organizations are starting in terms of insights, but I think we then start to drive it towards some of the more predictive insights. So we start to automate things, which drives up data quality because we can pull stuff out of emails, pull stuff out of reports, put that into the data systems, and we can make sure that's aligned with the problem statements that we're trying to solve. So I think the insights come from that end-to-end process. And I think there's some organisations at the moment probably not tackling that quite right at the moment. They're jumping straight to the data. So I think in terms of data analytics, we probably need to stop using the word data analytics actually, and just talk about evidence-driven decision making in projects, right? so we've got all of this rich experience that we're just dissipating at the moment. So I think, you know, it just changes some of the terminology and just making it more inclusive for people. Because data and some of the language and artificial intelligence and that sort of stuff, it's got sort of loads of buzzwords in there, but I think it makes people think that it's somebody else's job. It's a data job. It's not a project delivery role. And a lot of this is about transforming project delivery roles. It's a new set of skills we'll all have to develop. And it's a set of skills which I think is going to be really important. And it enables you to do your job a lot more effectively. And I think it's moving from this sort of rear view facing project reporting to crystal balls. And I think if we can start to develop these crystal balls, then it's a different future. You know, it's a very, very rewarding job.
Yeah, very similar to Martin. It needs to be more forward-looking than backward-looking. The insights offered need to be more aligned to the project purpose, so then linking to things like outcomes, and understanding the relationship between the project health and the ability to deliver the outcomes that the project's needs. But I think there's this question you posed there needs to be turned around, and I think what is it that we need to do to better understand the insights that are available from data analysis? And Martin touched on skills in his answer, and I think that is it. We need to improve our data literacy, not just in projects, but pretty much in most aspects of business, so that when we're talking about data, we really understand what it means, and we don't jump to conclusions inappropriately, or we don't dismiss information that's really giving us a compelling set of choices that we ought to be taking. So I think it's not what data analysis can do to help us gain the insights, it's what can we do to better equip ourselves to understand data analysis. And I think today it's principally going to be in decision making. I think as we get as that sort of snowball effect of being more comfortable and confident in using data analytics to inform decision making, I think my crystal ball is if we wind forward a number of years, and I'm hoping it's a number of years rather than a number of decades, I think some of the management frameworks that we have and some of the project management concepts that we have and we apply today, and it's still taught in project management school, will radically be different. And an example of that, and I've spoken about this a few times, is risk management. And the way we do risk management today is based upon, principally logging the things that we believe are uncertain that will have an impact on our project, and then doing some analysis around likelihood, and then doing some analysis around impact and understanding pre and post mitigation aspects of those. That's a lot of guesswork in there, and then we apply some algorithms to come up with an expected outcome, and that's often treated as the truth. Now, that's not data analytics. That's just us putting a whole load of guesses in something and applying a rule set that's not been proven, and then acting upon the outcome. And I think that whole process of understanding risk will be very different. I think it will be data analysis. It will be telling us the things that are likely to have an impact on our project, and telling us when we need to be thinking about making decisions on them, and what the different scenarios could be depending upon the choices that we make. Quite different to how we do it today.
So in terms of value data, so let me just pick on that. So if we start to value data, right, and there's some companies who start to put data onto their balance sheets, right? And basically say that it's got some intrinsic worth. Now, if we start to do this, we start to hoard data because it becomes more and more valuable for a company, and it starts to drive all the wrong behaviors on a project. So if you're a supplier and you're trying to protect your data, then you're not going to share it with your client. And it stops us then moving to this vision that Andy talked about before, you know, where we can potentially have 10,000 projects worth of data and we can all start to pull this data. So if we start to value data, I think it drives us down the wrong path. So I think that we need to look a lot broader than just looking at the value of data and looking at the value of what data can do for us. So if you are a project organization, what you're more interested in is driving the cost of your project delivery down, so your projects become cheaper and you can deliver them quicker with greater investment certainty. If you can deliver them with greater investment certainty, they become more investable. So overall, in terms of societies, we'll be delivering more and more projects because they become more investable. So you've got to look at the macro picture rather than the more self-interest of trying to value some of this data. So there's a different take on the same question. So in terms of Project Hack, it's an opportunity for a load of people to come together. This is project professionals, data scientists and data professionals, and we solve real world project problems in 2 days. So it's an opportunity to really inspire people. It shows people the art of the possible, and it brings you into this world of project data analytics. So in terms of the hackathon as well, we've got a lot of our academy people involved. So we run an academy. It's funded through the government's training levy. And basically we bring people up who's been trained then in some of the fundamentals about data science and some of the tools that are out there like Python and dashboards, etc. And they get all to work together to solve problems. So we have a team of about 6 people. It's self-forms on the day. So they pick the challenge they want to work on. And the team comes together, and in 2 days it starts to solve these problems. We've had things such as GPT-3 in there, which is one of the world's best engines for natural language processing, all the way down to dashboards and simple dashboards. So there's some top end stuff in there for people, and there's more sort of introductory things for people. So it depends what you want from it, and depends when you're coming. But I'd say just immerse yourself in this. This is the future. We all need to understand it. It's a great opportunity to immerse yourself in it. Got £5,000 worth of prizes. We've got some fantastic food. There's a bar on the Thursday night. So please come along and get involved. It's a great event.
Yeah, I'd like to go to sort of the association's strap line, if you like, that we use, which is around connecting people, sharing ideas and improving major projects. And I think bringing project professionals from all different types of projects and organizations together with those data professionals and data scientists is exactly the connecting people that we ought to be doing. And the sharing of ideas is done in real time on real problems, with that challenge to try and solve it or progress, you know, the idea in just 2 days. So, you know, it really does align to, you know, what the Major Projects Association stands for. And I think, you know, those project professionals who, you know, want to try things rather than talk about things, I think, you know, it should really appeal to those. I think the other thing I would like to say is that you know, Martin mentioned the art of the possible, and when, you know, I'm talking to project professionals, and often they will describe some of the things that we know are out there being used today. In their mind, it's in the sort of the science fiction realm, but these things are happening, and so for me, I think the value of project professionals attending a hack is that it really does demonstrate that there's lots of things that can be done right now, and you know, from the hack, they'll be seeing that lots of those things can be done with tools that are already either on their desktop or on their enterprise, you know, license in terms of the the systems that can be used, or are pretty affordable. So we're not talking about DeepMind or these these massive supercomputers over in California. These are things that are accessible to everyone, and just getting that ability to have a play in a safe environment where there are no consequences of getting something wrong here and there, I think is brilliant. We'll come with an open mind and attend with a view that you'll make new acquaintances, people that you can carry on building your professional network, perhaps outside of your immediate domain, which tends to be most people's network, but also just understanding what can be done and the things that they could apply on their projects right now. So keep that open mind and come along to see what can you get from it.
Check the website out and go and have a look at the challenges, and try and inspire yourself about the sort of thing you want from the hackathon. So why are you coming, right? So what's in it for you? Why are you there? And why are you giving up your time? I think each person's got different drivers for that. Some people's there to network, some people's there to find a job, some people's there to pick up some new skills and experience. So I think just sort of come into it, as Andy said, with an open mind and try and immerse yourself in the environment. It is entirely safe. It all sounds very daunting when you're first starting, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get thrown into this and I've got no coding skills, etc. Those skills will be available on tap. We've got a lot of experts there. We can parachute into your team for a few hours. We'll do some coding with you and we'll solve the problem that you need solving. So don't worry about that. It's more about your ability to work collegiately and solve some problems that have probably never been solved before. So it's a great opportunity to really move the dial on project delivery. You get things on your CV, and it's a great experience. You'll really enjoy.